Think about the last time someone completely dismissed you in a conversation. Maybe they talked right over you like you weren't even there. Or perhaps they took credit for your idea without a second thought. Here's what I want you to consider. What if I told you that how people treat you isn't actually about them at all? What if it's a direct reflection of something much deeper happening inside your own mind? You're about to discover why you keep attracting the same disrespectful treatment, no matter how nice you are or how hard you try to please everyone. And I promise you, this isn't going to be another feel-good video telling you that everyone else is the problem. We're going diving into the uncomfortable truth about why respect feels so elusive in your life. If you've ever felt invisible in your own relationships, if you're tired of being the person everyone comes to when they need something but ignores when you need support, then make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. Because what I'm about to share with you comes from decades of psychological research that most people will never hear about. You see, there's this brutal reality that Jung discovered about human nature. He found that our external world operates like a perfect mirror, reflecting back exactly what we project from our unconscious mind. And here's the thing that's going to sting a little. The way people treat you isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not because the world is full of jerks, though sometimes it might feel that way. People are responding to invisible signals you're broadcasting about how you see yourself. And most of the time, you have absolutely no idea you're even sending these signals. Let me paint you a picture. You walk into a room, and somehow you just know where you stand in the social hierarchy without anyone saying a word. Some people command attention the moment they enter. Others seem to blend into the wallpaper. What's happening here isn't magic, it's psychology in action. When you've spent years putting everyone else's needs before your own, when you've trained yourself to say yes even when every fiber of your being wants to scream no, you develop what I call invisible person syndrome. You become so practiced at making yourself small that you literally start disappearing from your own life. And here's where it gets really interesting. Jung believed that everything we attract into our lives is a symbolic manifestation of our relationship with repressed parts of ourselves. Those people who interrupt you, they're responding to your unconscious signal that your voice doesn't matter. Those friends who only call when they need favors, they're picking up on your deep-seated belief that your worth comes from what you can do for others, not who you are. I know this might sound harsh, but stay with me because understanding this is the key to everything changing. You learned these patterns somewhere. Maybe you grew up in a household where keeping the peace meant staying quiet. Maybe you discovered early on that being good meant never causing problems, never having needs, never taking up too much space. These childhood survival strategies made perfect sense then, but they're destroying your adult relationships now. You've internalized this voice that whispers, "Don't be difficult," every time you think about standing up for yourself. You've made unconscious agreements with the world that go something like this. "I'll never be a burden if you'll just love me," or "I'll be perfect if you'll just see my worth." But here's the devastating truth. The more you try to earn respect through perfection, the more you signal to others that you don't actually respect yourself. People can sense this on a level they might not even be consciously aware of. Think about someone you truly respect. I guarantee you they're not someone who bends over backward to please everyone. They're not someone who apologizes for existing or who treats their own time and energy as worthless. Respected people have something that you might have forgotten you ever possessed. They have boundaries. Now, before you start thinking this is all about becoming some cold, heartless person, let me be clear. This isn't about building walls or becoming selfish. This is about remembering that you matter too. This is about recognizing that your feelings, your time, your energy, and your peace of mind have value. Most people who struggle with respect have never learned the difference between being kind and being available for abuse. They think setting a boundary means being mean. They've confused love with self-sacrifice and respect with submission. But what if I told you that the most loving thing you can do for the people in your life is to show them how to treat you well? What if healthy boundaries actually create better relationships, not worse ones? Here's something that might blow your mind. People actually feel more comfortable around those who have clear boundaries. It's true. When someone knows where they stand with you, when they understand what you will and won't accept, it creates a sense of safety and predictability that actually deepens relationships. On the flip side, when you have no boundaries, people feel confused and sometimes even resentful. They might take advantage of your kindness, but deep down, they lose respect for someone who doesn't seem to value themselves. Let me share something Carl Jung discovered that changed how we understand human psychology forever. He identified what he called the shadow, those parts of ourselves that we've rejected, denied, or pushed down because we learned they were unacceptable. For many people who struggle with respect, their shadow contains things like healthy anger, the ability to say no, self-protection instincts, and what Jung called righteous indignation, that feeling that rises up when something is genuinely unfair. You might have learned as a child that anger was dangerous or that saying no made you selfish. So you push these natural, healthy responses into your shadow. But here's the thing about the shadow. It doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It goes underground and starts sabotaging you in ways you might not even realize. Your shadow is the part of you that freezes up when someone treats you badly. It's the voice that says, just let it go, when you should be standing up for yourself. It's the internal mechanism that convinces you to smile and nod when someone crosses a line that should never be crossed. Every time you swallow your words when someone interrupts you, every time you laugh off a comment that actually hurt, every time you make excuses for someone else's bad behavior toward you, that's your shadow running the show. And people can sense this internal conflict. They can feel that you're not fully integrated, that you're not comfortable with your own power, and unconsciously, they respond to that energy. You know what's fascinating? The people who respect you the least are often the ones who benefit the most from your inability to set boundaries. They've learned that you're a safe place to dump their problems, their frustrations, and their bad moods because you'll absorb it all without pushing back. They might even tell themselves they're good people while they're draining you dry because, after all, you're letting them do it. In their minds, if you really minded, you'd say something right. This is why changing how people treat you starts with changing how you treat yourself. It starts with integrating those shadow parts you've been hiding from. It starts with remembering that you have the right to take up space in this world. Now, here's where most people get stuck. They understand intellectually that they need to set boundaries and demand respect, but emotionally, they're terrified. They're afraid that if they stop being the person who says yes to everything, people will leave them. They're afraid that if they show their authentic selves, including the parts that might disappoint or inconvenience others, they'll end up alone. This fear of abandonment keeps more people trapped in disrespectful relationships than any other single factor. But here's what I want you to understand: anyone who would leave your life because you started treating yourself with respect was never really in your life for the right reasons anyway. Real love, real friendship, real respect, these things don't require you to disappear. In fact, they require the opposite. They require you to show up as your full, authentic self, boundaries and all. Let me give you some practical tools you can start using today to begin shifting this dynamic in your life. But I want to warn you, this isn't going to be comfortable at first. Your nervous system has been programmed to keep the peace at all costs, so when you start changing these patterns, you're going to feel resistance. First, start paying attention to your body. Your body knows when your boundaries are being crossed before your mind does. That knot in your stomach when someone asks you for yet another favor, That tension in your shoulders when someone speaks to you in a condescending tone. That feeling of being drained after spending time with certain people. Stop ignoring these signals. They're not being dramatic or oversensitive. They're giving you crucial information about what's happening in your relationships. Second, practice the revolutionary act of saying no without a paragraph of justification. Here's what I mean. When someone asks you to do something you don't want to do, instead of launching into a long explanation about why you can't, just say, "That won't work for me," or "I'm not available for that." Watch what happens when you do this. Pay attention to who respects your simple no and who pushes back, demanding explanations or trying to guilt you into changing your mind. This will tell you everything you need to know about who truly respects you and who has been taking advantage of your boundaryless nature. Third, start scheduling time for yourself like it's the most important appointment of your week. I'm talking about blocking out time in your calendar that is just for you, time that is not negotiable, not available for other people's emergencies, not something you can reschedule at the last minute because someone else needs something. This might sound selfish if you've been living your entire life for other people, but let me ask you this. How can you give from an empty cup? How can you be truly present for others when you're running on fumes? Taking care of yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. Fourth, learn to sit with other people's disappointment without fixing it. This is huge. When you set a boundary and someone gets upset about it, your programmed response might be to immediately back down or find a compromise that still leaves you giving more than you want to give. Instead, practice saying something like, "I understand you're disappointed and that's okay. My decision stands." Then resist the urge to keep talking, to explain yourself further, or to take responsibility for their emotional reaction. Fifth, start surrounding yourself with people who celebrate your growth instead of punishing it. Pay attention to how people respond when you start treating yourself better. The right people will be happy to see you valuing yourself more. They might even say things like, "I'm glad you're finally putting yourself first," or "You seem so much happier since you started setting boundaries." The wrong people will make you feel guilty for changing. They'll call you selfish or difficult. They'll try to convince you that you were better before, when you were more accommodating. These reactions tell you everything you need to know about their investment in your well-being versus their investment in what you can do for them. Here's something else I want you to understand. Respect isn't something you can demand from others through words alone. It's something you command through your actions, your energy, and your unwavering commitment to your own worth. When you truly respect yourself, it changes everything about how you move through the world. Your posture changes, your voice changes, the way you make eye contact changes. People pick up on these subtle shifts, and they respond accordingly. But this transformation doesn't happen overnight, and it doesn't happen without resistance, both from others and from parts of yourself that have gotten comfortable with the old patterns. Your psyche might actually try to sabotage your progress because, believe it or not, there are parts of you that find safety in being undervalued. If you've been playing small for years, there's a certain predictability to it. You know what to expect. Stepping into your full power means entering unknown territory, and that can feel scary. You might notice that as you start setting boundaries, some relationships in your life become strained. This is normal and, honestly, necessary. Relationships that were built on your inability to say no will need to be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect, or they'll need to end. I know that might sound harsh, but think about it this way. Would you rather have 10 people in your life who only value you for what you do for them, or 3 people who love and respect you for who you are? Quality over quantity always. One of the most powerful things you can do is learn to distinguish between guilt and intuition. When you start setting boundaries, guilt will show up immediately. It will tell you that you're being mean, that you're disappointing people, that you should just go back to the way things were. But underneath that guilt, if you really listen, you'll often find a quiet voice of knowing that says, "This is right. This is how I should be treated." That's your intuition, and learning to trust it over your guilt is one of the most important skills you can develop. Remember, guilt is often just old programming trying to keep you stuck in patterns that served other people's interests, but not your own. Your intuition, on the other hand, is connected to your authentic self and your genuine well-being. Another crucial piece of this puzzle is learning to apologize only when you've actually done something wrong. If you're someone who says sorry, reflexively, sorry for having an opinion, sorry for taking up space, sorry for having needs, you're training people to see you as someone who's always in the wrong. Start paying attention to how often you apologize in a day. You might be shocked by the number. Then start asking yourself, am I actually sorry? Or am I just trying to smooth over a moment of tension that isn't even my fault? Here's what I've observed after years of studying human behavior. The people who are respected the most are often the people who are most comfortable with momentary discomfort in relationships. They don't rush to fill every silence. They don't immediately try to fix every awkward moment. They're okay with letting tension exist because they understand that not all tension is bad. Sometimes tension is just the growing pains of a relationship adjusting to healthier dynamics. Sometimes it's the discomfort someone feels when they realize they can't manipulate you anymore. Learning to sit with this tension instead of immediately trying to resolve it is a superpower. I also want to address something that keeps many people stuck: the fear that if they change these patterns, they'll become unlikable or difficult. Here's the truth: you might become unlikable to people who were benefiting from your lack of boundaries. And you know what? That's actually a good thing. You're not trying to be liked by everyone. You're trying to be respected by people who matter. There's a huge difference. Think about the people you most admire in life. Are they people who bend over backward to please everyone? Are they people who have no opinions of their own, who never stand for anything, who treat themselves as less important than everyone else around them? Of course not. The people we admire and respect are those who have a strong sense of self, who know what they stand for, who treat themselves and others with dignity. They're not perfect, but they're authentic. They're not always agreeable, but they're real. That's who you can become when you stop betraying yourself for the approval of others. Now, let's talk about what happens when you start implementing these changes consistently. At first, you'll probably feel like you're being fake or putting on an act. This is normal. You've been playing a role for so long that authenticity might feel foreign at first. But as you practice these new behaviors, something magical starts to happen. You begin to remember who you actually are underneath all the people-pleasing and boundary-crossing. You start to reconnect with your own preferences, your own opinions, your own sense of what feels right and wrong. You might discover that you actually have strong feelings about things you thought you were indifferent to. You might realize that you've been suppressing parts of your personality because you thought they were too much or too difficult for other people to handle. This process of reclaiming yourself can be emotional. You might feel angry about all the years you spent putting everyone else first. You might feel sad about all the opportunities you missed because you were too afraid to disappoint someone. You might feel frustrated with yourself for taking so long to figure this out. All of these feelings are valid and important. Don't try to skip over them or push them down. They're part of your healing process. As you continue on this journey, you'll start to notice that your energy changes. When you're not constantly giving away pieces of yourself, when you're not walking on eggshells trying to manage everyone else's emotions, you have more energy for the things and people that actually matter to you. You'll find that you're more present in your relationships because you're not resentfully keeping score of all the ways you've been taken advantage of. You'll discover that you're more generous because your generosity is coming from choice rather than obligation. And here's something beautiful that happens. When you start respecting yourself, you actually become better at respecting others too. You stop expecting them to read your mind about what you need. You stop being passive-aggressive when your unspoken expectations aren't met. You start communicating directly and honestly, which makes you easier to be in relationship with, not harder. The most successful people I know in terms of relationships and respect have one thing in common. They've learned that their worth isn't up for negotiation. They know who they are, they know what they bring to the table, and they don't need constant validation from others to feel secure in that knowledge. This doesn't mean they're arrogant or closed off to feedback. It means they have a stable sense of self that doesn't crumble every time someone disagrees with them or doesn't appreciate what they have to offer. You can develop this same unshakable sense of self-worth, but it requires you to stop looking for it in other people's responses to you. It requires you to start building it from the inside out through consistent acts of self-respect and self-care. Every time you honor a boundary you've set, every time you speak up for yourself in a respectful but firm way, every time you choose what's best for you even when it's not what's easiest, you're making a deposit in your self-respect bank account. And just like a financial bank account, these deposits compound over time. The more you respect yourself, the easier it becomes to respect yourself. The more you value your own time and energy, the clearer it becomes when others aren't valuing them appropriately. I want to leave you with one final thought. The journey to being respected starts with a decision. It starts with deciding that you matter, that your feelings matter, that your time matters, that your peace of mind matters. It starts with deciding that you're worthy of the same consideration you freely give to others. It starts with understanding that teaching people how to treat you isn't selfish, it's necessary. If what I've shared with you today resonates, if you recognize yourself in any of these patterns, then I want you to make a commitment right now. Comment below and tell me, I choose to respect myself. Let that be your first public declaration of your commitment to change. And if you want to go deeper into this work, if you're ready to really transform how you show up in the world and how others respond to you, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. We're just getting started on this journey together, and there's so much more I want to share with you about building unshakable self-respect and creating relationships that truly nourish your soul. Remember, respect isn't something you hope for or beg for. It's something you build one boundary at a time, one authentic choice at a time, one moment of self-honoring at a time. You've got this, and I believe in you.